My name is Shub. I'm a Schulich Leader Scholar studying biomedical sciences and a member at STEM Fellowship. And you're listening to STEM Fellows, a monthly podcast where I have conversations with prominent STEM leaders to spark big ideas. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of STEM Fellows. This month, I'm pumped to have Andrew DeLee on the show. Andrew is currently a first-year medical student at the University of Toronto, St. George campus. Prior to his medical training, Andrew obtained his bachelor's degree in Biomedical and Materials Engineering at McMaster University, where he served as the president of the Engineering Society. Aside from his academic pursuits, Andrew is an avid student researcher and community leader with a passion for teaching others and sharing their experiences in STEM. Andrew, it's truly a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Shub. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, like, when I was, brainstorming like discussion points for today's interview, I was thinking about like the first time we met. And I believe we were introduced to each other through Medical Makers, actually. And before that, even, I remember reading like a news story about you or something, because when I was like applying to scholarships or something in high school, I saw that you were like a Loran, was it finalist or something? And
yes, wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah,
yes,
and I'm like, no way. How am I meeting Andrew? So that was like I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, it was a pleasure seeing you at like the first Medical Makers meeting, and I guess here we are right now. So yeah, I've been really excited for this episode, and I'm so glad you said yes to joining me. Because when I was brainstorming like people who I could potentially invite, I'm like, once I got to know you more, I'm like, I have to have Andrew on the show, like soon, like very soon. So it's finally here.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, that's such a coincidence. I had no idea. But yes, it's been a pleasure to work with you over the last couple of months. Shub, almost a year now, I guess. It's been a while.
Yeah, we started 2020, like early 2020, something like that. Yeah, and
so a little bit longer than I'm thinking. Wow, time flies.
Even yeah. Damn. Oh, Lee. Okay. Yeah. So we can talk about Medical Makers a bit later on as well. But
Sure.
I guess you've probably listened to previous episodes, and I'm sure you've heard that with whoever joins me on the show, I always like to start off with 3 questions. And that's just simply asking you like who you are, where you came from. So I guess like what your background is, and I guess what brought you to where you are today. So please go right ahead. Please share with everyone.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, those are pretty broad questions, so I'm going to do my best to give a good but concise answer here. So I guess I'll start again with my name. I mean, you did a good job. My name is Andrew DeLee. I'm a first-year medical student at the University of Toronto. I've been enrolled at the St. George campus. I grew up in Richmond Hill, Ontario, and I've pretty much studied and lived here my whole life. I went to school at McMaster before medical school, and I studied Biomedical and Materials Engineering as part of a new kind of pilot program called Integrated Biomedical Engineering and Health Sciences, or Biomed for short. And I had a blast there. I was, as you mentioned, part of the student community there, so I was very involved with the McMaster Engineering Society, but also a variety of other initiatives such as Medical Makers, Hamilton Chapter. I served as a TA there for our first year engineering design course. Yeah, it was an incredible time. I really enjoyed my time at McMaster. Outside of school, I'm a Taekwondo instructor, which is something some people don't know about me. Yeah, I've been training since I was 5, so that's just about, it's going to be 16 years now, and I've been teaching for 11 of those years. So yeah, it's a really important part of my life. I really enjoy it. It's been hard to do it through quarantine. Zoom rooms are not the same for training in Taekwondo, but we've made the most of it. Yeah, I guess that's who I am. I guess how I got here. I want to say it was a combination of luck, of hard work, and of course those around me. Right. I think that I owe a lot of my success and a lot of the things that I've experienced to my parents, of course, my mentors, my teachers, my friends, everybody who was there to support me along the way, and give me the opportunities that I needed to kind of explore this direction, especially in research in medicine. That's what led me to this career path. But also just in general, right, lifting me up and making sure that I felt that I was capable of doing what I set my mind to. So I'm a product of both hard work and in my environment. Hopefully that's a good answer. I wish I could give a better one.
It doesn't have to be a good answer. It's just like what you said. Yeah,
Good, good.
no.
Well, yeah, hopefully, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got everything. I covered it all. I was just really surprised by your Taekwondo. Like grade 5, like I don't know how that works. Or sorry, not grade 5, age 5. Like I don't know how that works and how you're still like committed and continuing that. So that's incredible, even through the pandemic and virtual Zoom rooms.
Yeah,
So
it's been quite the journey. I mean, I was definitely not good at the age of 5, but yeah, everybody starts somewhere. So
yeah. What degree, what like they have like belts, right? So like what color, what degree, whatever are you?
yeah, so currently I am a 5th degree black belt in
So
Taekwondo.
what? So there's black belt, but you're also not one, not two, not three, not four, but fifth degree.
Yes.
How much does it go up to? Like, is that the
I get this
max?
question a lot. Yeah, so there are 9 degrees total in
Okay.
Taekwondo. So 5th degree is a little more than halfway there, but I'd say the latter half is the longer and
Wow.
harder half.
So forget about
um,
med school. Like, is that your ultimate goal in life? Like getting to the ninth degree?
oh, you know what? Like I think I've met my limit. I'm not sure that I'm going to continue further. I think like, to get your 9th degree means to dedicate your entire life to Taekwondo.
Oh
At least
wow.
that's the way that I see it, and the way that I've seen, people that have attained that level of or that ranking.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if Taekwondo is something that I want to devote my life to so fervently like that. So I wouldn't say 9th degree is for me, but who knows? Maybe like a 6th degree would be cool. After that, it gets a little bit more. It gets a little bit more tricky. It's not as black and white. It's just training and testing. It becomes a little bit more of an actual like election process where those
Oh,
around you nominate you to be
right.
promoted. So yeah, I mean, I'm very satisfied with where I am. I definitely have taken, I think, what I needed to away from Taekwondo. For me, it's been more so about the community and
Hmm.
I mean, of course, there's the physical activity element
Right.
that that I'm struggling with a little bit during quarantine right now. And then there's of course like the discipline component, right? All of the lessons and things that you take away from Taekwondo, and I think those are the more important parts. A belt would be nice, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm where I need to be.
No, that's great. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna have to hit you up about like scheduling a session with you sometime later over Zoom.
Sure, anytime. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love it.
Sounds good. Yeah. No, I guess we can keep trucking along. I just wanted to start off with, I guess, undergrad, like when you, I guess we're in high school student thinking about like potentially what you wanted to do going forward. What brought you to biomed? Like, is that the only program that you applied to, or were there other ones? And I guess why that one program specifically?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question. I'm laughing because the idea of applying to one program just scares me. I'm a very indecisive person. So I actually applied to 11 programs across Canada when I was in high school. But that's a different story. So to answer your question, no, iBiomed was not the only program I applied to. Back when I was in high school, I was really interested. It's kind of interesting. I was interested in theater at the time, and I was also interested in sciences. And at one point, I kind of had to decide which one. So I decided to apply majorly to science programs because I decided that was something that I was more passionate about. So for me, what that kind of science was, I wasn't sure yet. I had always loved science, and I'd taken all three sciences, so physics, bio, and chem, just to make sure I'd left all my doors open. And when
Mm-hmm.
it came time to apply, I think I left too many doors open and I wasn't sure what to choose. I thought about, of course, medicine, but I remember speaking to my mom on the way home from school one day, and she mentioned, I can see you being an engineer, Andrew. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of interesting. I'd never even thought of that. And I didn't really even know what engineering was. So after a little bit of research, I still didn't know what engineering was. I don't think most engineers know what
Just know
engineering
what it
is.
is.
So it was a little bit of a hazy topic.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking through all the different programs, I ended up going to the Ontario University Fair, and I came across this program at McMaster that was just across the booth from the health sciences and the engineering programs. Was this integrated biomedical engineering and health sciences program. And I thought, wow, that's so interesting because I don't have to make a single decision here. I get to
It's an
leave both
all-in-one
doors open.
package.
Yeah, everything I ever wanted, all in one place. And so for me, the opportunity to kind of study both simultaneously and postpone that decision, allowing me to kind of explore what I was interested in a little bit further, was super idealistic to me. So I decided to go for something that was a little bit more open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a little bit more time. It's hard to decide in high school what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I think even in undergrad, it was hard for me to decide. Having this option was really nice. And so when I, very graciously got that acceptance letter sometime in late spring, I was ecstatic, and I knew that it was the place that I wanted to go.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad I'm glad you had that opportunity, because I didn't even know, like, when I was applying to university programs, I didn't even know like iBiomed was a thing, like integrating like engineering and health sciences into one program. I thought it was just like the general, like either Bachelor of Science or just like the like major specific programs. Like I didn't know you could combine two programs into one. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, I
awesome. I
was
definitely
super
would have applied
lucky.
to iBiomed if I guess I knew about it back in high school.
Yeah, it was a complete coincidence that I came across the program. It was really new when I applied to it. It's still quite new now. I mean, when I applied, it was the second cohort, so there had only ever been 1 year before me. In fact, this is the first year that we'll have a graduating class because it's a 5-year program. So it was a very coincidental situation. I'm very glad that I happened upon it, and I know it's a great program. So I'm hoping people in the future will get the exposure to it that they need to make sure that it's in their list of options.
And like, I guess sharing about it right now will
Yeah,
definitely spread the
that
word. So no, that's incredible. And I also saw that you were featured in like one of McMaster's like day in the life of an iBiomed. Like you're the face of the program, Andrew. And yeah, you did a really good job of covering, I guess, your personal experiences with the program and I guess what exactly it entailed. And I was just wondering if you'd mind touching on like some of the things you talked about in that video again, and I guess
yeah.
like what the program, like what your experiences were with the program, and I guess what you got out of it.
Yeah, for sure. So wow, that was a long time ago now. I was back in first year when I did that video. It was very also so quick, and I think I was only 3 months into the program when we did the actual filming. So that's kind of interesting to look back at now. But yeah, so I guess in that video, I kind of just spoke about the student experience. So my experience in the program thus far, and I really at the time I was just so impressed by how much I was learning in such a small period of time. Again, it was only 3 months, but I felt like I had learned more than I had learned in my entire high school career, right? Coming out of, fresh out of high school and into undergrad, it was very impressive to see how much someone could teach you. And so being in such an integrated program where in one course I was learning about, cellular and biomolecular mechanisms of different signal processes. And then in another, I was learning sheer calculus, just bare bones calculus. And in another, I was learning about how I could go from, learning how to design a simple cube in a 3D CAD software, right? All the way to developing a full-blown hip implant from scratch. So the fact that, they were able to teach us so many different things in an integrated fashion without making my head explode. I mean, it did a little bit, but without making my head explode, I was just bewildered by that. And just the opportunities that came out of that program to kind of pursue your creativity and learn in a space where it was okay not to have all the answers and even fail sometimes without really, facing dire consequences, was really, really interesting. The design studio kind of atmosphere that they created, where it was very ideation focused, all centered around this engineering design process. That was thrilling to me, and it really gave me the space that I needed to explore my interests in engineering. And it's ultimately why I ended up becoming a TA for the course. I found it so interesting to see what other people were doing. That kind of space that they created was really unique, and that's why I felt so strongly about sharing that through that promotional video.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the majority. The rest of it was really kind of about like my day-to-day life, getting out of bed at 7 a.m, trudging to class.
Wait, you had 7 a.m. classes? Those are the
Oh, well, no,
worst.
I just woke up at 7 a.m. so that I could
Oh,
get to the classes on time. But yeah, starting every day early, going through multiple lectures a day,
yeah.
and then usually having a lab or two in the afternoon was my day-to-day schedule. So it
Mhm.
definitely was by no means an easy program. It was quite rigorous, but still very, very rewarding.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine. Yeah. You said you're TAing. What year was that, Andrew? Like what
Yeah,
year?
so I TA'd in both my second and third year. So after I'd completed the course, I had applied to become a teaching assistant,
Mhm.
and I joined the team in my second year as a design studio teaching assistant. So I was responsible for kind of guiding students through the engineering design process, all the way from first meeting your client or your patient or the problem, right?
Yeah.
Defining that problem, and kind of going through a series of steps, milestones we used to call them, to arrive at a solution to that problem. And so that was my job, was to kind of guide through people through that, help them develop skills in like Python, CAD, engineering design process kind of things,
Mhm.
and eventually, creating a prototype out of that.
Yeah, no, it's incredible you were able to do that in second and third year because I thought like TAing a course you'd have to, I guess, have to graduate from undergrad or like be in your fourth year or something.
Yeah,
So
yeah. McMaster is a little bit interesting that way. I didn't
okay.
realize that was something that was unique to our school. Now that I'm at U of T, I've noticed that a little bit more.
Yeah,
But at McMaster, there's a lot of opportunities to TA as an undergraduate student. So you don't
awesome.
need to be a graduate student to TA at McMaster. So it
Mhm.
was a very nice opportunity. It supported me financially, of course, but it was nice from the perspective of sharpening my own skills and also meeting some of the other students in my program.
No, 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 that's phenomenal. Yeah, thanks for sharing that again. Yeah,
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
for sure. Yeah, uh, and I guess medical makers. How did that fall into the program? Because it's very it really complemented like I guess what you were doing in iBiomed because like just being a part maybe would you mind just giving an overview we've said medical maker so many times but people might not know what it is like would you mind just giving you everyone like a brief overview of like what it is.
Sure. Yeah, I'm hoping that I don't butcher this definition. So, Medical Makers is an organization that seeks to create 3D printed solutions to problems facing low to middle income countries in the healthcare field. Um, so that definition a little bit has changed over the years. Sometimes it's a little bit more. It's not necessarily about 3D printing, but it's really about creating solutions,
Innovating.
creating these interdisciplinary teams that help to innovate solutions to problems all over the world, mostly and most importantly for the purpose of social good.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
I mean to tell you, I guess, a little bit more, that over the course of the last couple of years, I got involved with it in my first year, um, through a friend who had met the founder of the program, Julie Lin Wang. who was a doctor trained at Queen's University. She founded the organization a while back, and she had been at some sort of event that was 3D printing a new bill for a duck that had, like, something had happened to its bill. I don't know the story exactly, but they had created an event out of 3D printing this new bill, and I believe finding a way to kind of restore function to the duck. So through that event, one of my friends met Julie Lynn, and from there we decided to create our own Hamilton chapter that was mainly centered around McMaster and biomedical engineering students, but was open to anyone. And so that's how I got involved with the organization. And then after a year of participating in projects, which, like you said, is very much in line with what I was learning and the type of program that I was in, I decided that I wanted to take a bigger role. So I became a chapter co-lead in my second year. And in my third year, I continued that position up until now, where I've taken a little bit of a step back. I'm still part of the organization, but more of a supportive role. I'm allowing, some other people who have a lot more energy and enthusiasm to kind of take that opportunity to be a leader in this program.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess the one project we were working on was for a specific challenge that we took part in. I don't know, did you want to touch on that as well? Like, because you were the project manager for that, and I guess you were training me as well. So maybe in the future I could, I'll actually tell you about a project that we're working on. I don't know if you heard about it. It's like with the Canadian Space Agency, like they're running a challenge. So.
Oh yes, yeah, I heard about that project for sure. Tell me about it.
So myself and Shivam are, I guess, managing that team. So I'm taking over your role, I guess, filling in your footsteps for that project. But essentially, we're just trying to innovate a solution to healthcare issues that, I guess, people in resource constrained settings, or I guess astronauts in space face, that don't currently have a solution. So we're still brainstorming a few ideas. I don't know if we're allowed to share them, just because it's, I guess, keep them confidential for the challenge. But in the future, I'd love to share more about it.
Yeah, that's incredible, Shub. I mean, that's a very cool project. I hope that I have the opportunity to contribute to it in some way. And I would agree, that's a pretty resource constrained area, being space. So that's a really cool project. Yeah, I can touch on a little bit of my project as well. Same situation where unfortunately I can't share too much due to confidentiality agreements. But from a high level perspective, I participated in a project as a project manager that was affiliated with the Global Surgical Training Challenge, which was kind of like this initiative that was started by a couple of different organizations, one including MIT Solve, another organization being the Intuitive Foundation, Nesta challenges, and other things like that. And the challenge was really just about innovating the I guess training around surgery and surgical skills in resource constrained and low to middle income countries. So the purpose of our project was to create some sort of training module that could be used to improve orthopedic surgical care in countries like Nigeria, for example. Creating something that different students could use to practice their skills that wasn't necessarily a patient or a cadaveric specimen, as those specimens tend to be very rare or high risk or hard to come by. So this was about kind of creating more resources for people to be able to train, to learn how to do things properly, so that there's higher quality care being delivered in those areas.
Yeah, that was really I don't know about you, but like I learned a lot through that project, and I was really grateful to just be a part of it. And yeah, it was just nice meeting everybody, making those connections. I guess we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for that project. So yeah,
it was a pretty fulsome project. I mean, we touched on everything from 3D printing and to, engineering design to testing and like industry partners,
clinical
literature
work,
review,
everything.
signal analysis and signal processing. So there was a lot of different components. And of course, there was the clinical component as well. So yeah, that was a pretty fulsome project. I think it's rare that you get to see all of those different things in one place. But yeah, it certainly was a pretty cool thing to be a part of. I'm sad it's over.
Yeah, me too. No, I guess we're still waiting back on the finalist awards application.
Oh yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, we are waiting to see if our project does continue on to the next round. We applied for the finalist grant, but until then, we're kind of just waiting in sheer anxiety.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. Forgot.
Take your time.
My mind. Yeah, that's what I love about medical makers, how interdisciplinary it is. It's not just like one thing. Like, I'm not an engineer. I know little to nothing about engineering. I don't know how to code, yet I'm still a part of this organization that 3D print solutions and is basically just like biomedical students. Like in our team, I think the majority of the people part of the project were from Hamilton. Like they were from the iBiomed program there. So yeah, I was still able to contribute. It's like I wasn't able to. I was still able to, I guess, do like background research, help out with like the application writing, reach out to people for different things that we were, I guess, wanting, like companies and all that. So that's why I love about, I guess, just the organization.
Yeah, I agree. Engineering is a team sport, and it definitely doesn't require, a specific set of courses necessarily. Anybody can be an engineer with the right mindset and the right tools, I guess.
I love that. You should, I'll quote you on that.
I should coin that quote.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Okay. Were there any other extracurriculars you were part of, Andrew? Like you touched on Taekwondo, teaching, medical makers. I guess you were also engineering society. I don't know if you wanted to expand on that a bit more, but
sure. Yeah, I'm gonna try to remember. I was involved in quite a bit back in undergrad. Another organization that I wouldn't call it an organization, but another thing that I was a part of was the iBiomed Society. So it was more of like a lower scale society that was heavily, dedicated towards iBiomed students from all of our different streams. We have 9 streams. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but it was a society that's dedicated towards, student well-being, student life, advocacy, and all that. Another thing that I was a part of that I'm really proud of was my work with the Welcome Week team. So I served as a Welcome Week engineering rep. So I was one of those people that was walking around in a red suit, dancing and screaming cheers crazily during Welcome Week. That changed a little bit during the COVID restrictions, but it was a great time. It was always my favorite time of year, being able to welcome new students onto campus, inspire them to kind of try something new, do different things, and just embrace the community that they're becoming a part of. I love the community at McMaster, and it was something that really shaped my experience. So being able to create that for other people was really, really rewarding. So that was another thing that I was a part of. And other than that,
that's already a lot. Like that's really incredible.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but I'm probably forgetting something. It was a very busy time. I really enjoyed my work there. Oh, I do remember one more. So I did also start this was pretty cool. It's still happening, which makes me really happy. It was called, I started a tutoring program for students in engineering and in biomedical sciences, health sciences, mostly in iBiomed, but also related to other programs that specifically met the needs of students in these streams that couldn't find tutoring help and tutoring support through other streams. So, we had tutoring programs through the McMaster Engineering Society and through the Student Success Center at McMaster, but there were quite a few gaps. And so that was, another way that I found I could help fill in the gaps and make things easier for students. So that was another thing that I did that is pretty cool that I was happy to be a part of. Okay, I'm done.
It's like, please keep going. Like I can listen all day. But I guess that brings me to my next question. Like,
Sure.
how are you able to, I ask this, so like myself this question every day as well. Like, how are you able to do all of that, like in undergrad, and still be successful? Like you were able to excel. You weren't just doing it, like you were excelling at everything that you were doing, right? So like how? Like, I don't know. You might not even have an answer to that.
I love that you're asking me this question, Shu, because I feel like if people saw your calendar the way that I've seen your calendar, they would know that I think you have it worse than I did.
No.
So I know that's a great question, and it's a question that a lot of people that I've had the pleasure of working with in the past, we've discussed and tried to hash out. So it's a little bit nebulous still. I'm not exactly sure how I ended up doing all of the things that I did, and trying to stay on top of school with all of that. But one thing that I said that has always been my approach is to start slow or start low and go slow, kind of like how you might start someone on a new therapy. I learned that in medical school. So what that means is, in first year, I started very, very minimally. I did apply for a couple of things. Some of them I got and some of them I didn't. And so that kind of gave me a very nice, slow starting point to kind of get the feel for university, understand what the workload is like, adjust to living on my own, because I was now out of my house, my family house. I was doing things myself. I had a lot more responsibility in that way, and kind of just gather my bearings, right? And slowly but surely, I learned how to study better. I learned how to learn quicker. I learned what I need, how much effort I needed to put, because there is such thing as overstudying or putting more effort than you really need to end up with the same result. So I learned eventually how much work I really needed to put in to get the results that I wanted. I learned how to be more efficient with my time in general. I think meal prepping was a big thing too. So I learned strategies, and I learned, I guess, like space saving activities that I could do to improve not only my academic performance, but also the amount of time that I had to do other things. And so I think that over time I realized, oh, I'm still doing well in school, and I think I have time to take on this as well. And so eventually I took on more and more and more, to the point where eventually I had to start saying no to things. I found my new limit, but by taking that approach, I never really compromised, my academic well-being or the other things that I was a part of. And of course, I think underlying all of these different strategies were the people that were surrounding me, right? I'm fortunate that way. I had a very good set of mentors, and that included profs, but also like my peers. All of them were always in my corner and willing to help out if I needed something. So sometimes it wasn't necessarily that I had the time to do everything, but that I had a good support system to lean back on if I needed to let go of something, or delegate to someone else to get it done. So I think it was a combination of just better and better time management habits, but also a really good network of support.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks. Yeah, hopefully that's the secret recipe that people are looking for.
That is a secret recipe. You've just solved how to do things without.
It's harder said than done. I feel like it's something that you never really master, but you do get better at it, and it's something that you don't really notice until you've gotten further along in your undergrad or your grad school career, that you understand how much better you are than you started.
Yeah, no, I agreed with you about starting like low and then slowly working up your way to the limit, instead of, I guess, just going full force at it and then being like, oh no, I have to quit this, I have to quit that, like just not working out well. So that's a really nice thing you shared with everybody, and I know it's gonna, I guess, resonate with a lot of people. Yeah, so it looks like you were able to make the most of your time at McMaster. You were accepted into U of T's medical school this year. This year, which I'm still super stoked of you for. Like, I was so excited when you told us, like, during that one medical maker meeting. I'm like, go Andrew! Like, I was rooting for you. Yeah. So let me start off. Like, why medicine? Like, what was it something? Was it? I know it's a big question. Like, it's obviously something you must have had on the back of your mind. You said you were thinking of it, maybe like doing something, applying to like a medical program in high school for undergrad. So, like, why was there like particular experience that influenced your decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. Sometimes, I mean, the why medicine question is a notorious question that
Were you?
I
Can
hope.
I wait? Sorry to interrupt. Were you asked it during your interview or not?
um, I'm not sure I can share that,
Oh, okay,
but
no worries.
no, I don't think. I mean, like, I think this is pretty general question. I did not get asked that question during my interview. I've heard it asked before though, so definitely something that like is important to think about for anybody who's looking to apply to med school or has received an interview invitation. And congrats on that if you have. So I mean, yeah, the why medicine question is pretty huge, and I've thought about it in a lot of different ways. I have anticipated this question before, but truly, from outside the perspective of like an interview or something like that, it's something that I'm always discovering myself. I don't think I have a perfect answer even now. I think truly at its core, there is the important fact, and you will hear this in everybody's story somewhere or another. You want to help people. And so for me, I really wanted to have an impactful kind of role in someone else's life. As you can see, I'm quite talkative, and I will ramble on forever. I love making conversation with people. I love connecting with people, and so what better way to make meaningful connections than a discipline like medicine? I knew that I wanted to be intellectually challenged, so I knew that medicine would provide me that. Not that engineering wouldn't, but I knew that medicine would provide me that. And I don't know, it was a type of science that truly just attracted me. It was something that I had thought about in high school, but wasn't really fully set on, which is why I pushed myself to try engineering as well first.
Mhm.
And when I got to engineering, I'll be honest, I fell in love with it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I still do really like it. I hope to integrate it somehow into my practice one day. But I knew that somewhere deep down, I loved medicine more, from what I had discovered in my
No.
anatomy courses, from my health sciences courses, and of course, just from what I've heard from people that have gone through the process. I knew that medicine was something that I was more interested in,
Mhm.
and that engineering was something that I could see myself doing, but maybe not for the entire rest of my life. And
Mhm.
so, in combination, I decided to throw my hat in the ring, and try for a spot in this medical school. And I'm fortunate that it worked out. So yeah, I mean, that's how I got here. Why medicine is a really tough thing, and I'm still trying to discover what kind of medicine that is. And the other reasons that I'm a part of medicine, I think I will discover as I go along.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think it really just comes down to wanting to have this kind of impact on someone's life, right? Because you can help people in all kinds of different ways. But how you help them might be something that's important to you. And for me, it was wanting to be there for someone in some of the hardest times of their life and some of the most important moments of their life. And that this is the opportunity to have that kind of relationship with someone. So
Aw,
I desired that. Yeah.
it's really sweet. I really
Thanks.
like that. Yeah. Awesome. Um, yeah, so wanting to pursue a career in medicine is one thing, and then getting into it is another. So, like, I'm sure like people already know like medical school applications are like extremely comprehensive. They're a lot. Like, there's so much that goes into them. You have
Yeah.
to write, I guess, personal statement essays. You have to write the Mcat and submit your scores. You have to submit your transcripts. Like, you have to make sure you have good grades throughout undergrad. You have to get reference letters. Talk about your extracurricular and research
Oh
experiences.
gosh, I'm dizzy.
And then What else is there? And then eventually like do the interview, right? I don't know. Am I missing anything?
I think it's pretty thorough.
Yeah,
There's a lot of steps to it
a
at the
lot of
very
steps.
least. Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of steps to it.
Mhm. So like, this is another big question, but how? How did you do it? Like, how did you successfully complete all of these steps and get into like one of the best medical schools in Canada?
Yeah, Shub, I still ask myself that question all the time. I still pinch myself sometimes. Yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point. Medicine is something that is very competitive, I think anywhere, but especially in Canada. And it's definitely something that a lot of people, try for that aren't successful. And that's really unfortunate because we need those people.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It is a very challenging process. I think one of the things that I did to prepare for that was, again, study something that I knew I'd be interested in, even if I didn't end up in medicine, which is again why I pursued something like engineering.
Mm.
I knew it would have been a very fulsome career. It would have been something that I still enjoyed, something that I still could have been passionate about, and also could have still been part of the medical community in a way, right? Biomedical engineers are integral to the technologies that drive new treatments and stuff like that. So I knew that I wanted to create a backup plan. That engineering was that backup plan for me. When it came to actually applying, I think the important thing is to take it step by step. Those are all important. The things that you listed are important components of an application, but not all of them need to be completed at once, right? Those are things that you
Yeah,
can
people
take
just look
off
at them and they get
in small
overwhelmed, right?
chunks.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I still get overwhelmed just thinking about it, but it is something that can be broken down into bite-sized pieces. And not all of them are necessarily things that you really have to try explicitly for, if that makes sense. You don't necessarily, for example, your extracurriculars, right? If you can really hunt for these extracurriculars, you can really push yourself to be doing all the right things and checking all the right boxes, right? Or you can do what you're interested in. You can start the club that you like. You can join a club that you like. You can be part of the organizations that you want to and not be part of others. You can volunteer, or you can not volunteer, right? The important thing is that you do what you enjoy. And if you do that, then there is no need to really worry about meeting that part of the application. So for me, that was something that I always reminded myself of, is that I never wanted to hunt for a specific
Push
extracurricular that I
yourself.
thought was going to be the, I don't know, I guess, prototype version of, or like the classical version of a medical school applicant. I wanted to be doing the things that I enjoyed. I wanted medical school to be part of my journey, not my destination. So for me, that meant doing what I liked. And that's how I'm fortunate to say that I never had to worry about extracurriculars as much, because that wasn't, I wasn't hunting for anything. I was just enjoying my time in undergrad. As for the other components of the application, I mean, the Mcat is obviously something you have to get through. My advice for that piece is look at the schools that you want to apply to, and try your best to meet their criteria. That doesn't necessarily mean applying and writing and trying to get a perfect score. In fact, many schools, their average Mcat score is far from perfect, right? So look at the school, look at what they're actually expecting of you, and don't worry about, or don't like attach your character to how well you do on this test. Take it for the sake of taking it. Look at how it's in, or, look at the importance that it places on the schools that you're interested in, and go from there. The classical example that I like to give is literally where I am now. U of T required a much lower score than I actually needed to, or that I had aimed for. Of course, you want to cast a wide net, and that's why I tried my best. But had I known back in the summer that I wrote that I would be where I am now, I would have been a lot easier on myself. So make sure you think about where you want to go, and what their expectations are of you. It is a hard test, but you will get through it. If you have to write it again, you will get through it, and eventually you will be happy and you will apply. And that's the important positive mindset that you need. The rest of the application, I think, is just about time management. A lot of it is like reference letters and essays and stuff like that. Starting early is obviously a good thing for anything. This is no different. Reach out to those references as soon as you can. And when it comes to the essays, I would just say, do your best to get as many people to give you feedback as you can. I went through, I think, 9 drafts of my essays before I actually submitted them. And that was just because like I did what I could to get feedback from people. And I'm not talking about like medicine, like people in medicine or people in medical school or, a professor of some sort to edit these things. I'm talking about my mother, my sister, my friend, people like just around you. Make sure that they can understand what you're reading, what you've wrote. Oh, wow. What you've written. And if that's the first and most important thing. If they can understand it, then you're halfway there. And then it's about just making it meaningful and impactful with the space that you have. So that would be my best piece of advice for essays. Hopefully I've covered like the biggest pieces. I don't want to make this whole thing about an essay, like an application. But the important thing is just small bite-sized pieces, take it day by day. Try not to look at the pre-med forums too much. They'll stress you out.
On Reddit?
Oh, for sure. And hang in there, try to stay positive. Make sure you have people in your life that are there to support you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Follow-up question for that. That was
Sure.
Incredible, by the way. Thanks for sharing all that, Andrew.
Yeah, no problem.
It was the reference letters. I know a lot of people have questions regarding like who should I ask for reference letters? I don't know exactly what the number is, like how many you need, but like did you have like a like a strategy or something like of who you think you would ask? Or
yeah, that's a great question. So for them, usually the schools will kind of tell you what they're looking for, which is nice because then it takes some of the guesswork out of it. So for U of T, I needed an academic reference. So someone who had taught me before, who had worked within an academic context. I needed a non-academic reference. So someone that knew me either from an extracurriculars perspective or outside of school completely. And then I needed one of my choice. So it could be an academic or a non-academic essay, or sorry, reference letter. So that already narrowed things down a lot because I didn't really have as much flexibility with who I was going to choose. I think the important thing is not status of the referee, but more importantly, what they can say about you, your relationship with them, and all of that. So make sure you're choosing someone first and foremost that you think truly understands the applicant that you are, the good person that you are, because that's way more important than whether or not they're an associate professor or a full-blown professor emeritus or something like that. That doesn't matter. What's more important is what they're saying about you and the experiences that they can attest to. So for me, one of my references letters came from my prof that eventually became my boss as a TA. My second was from my research supervisor. And my third was from actually our student engagement specialist at my in my department, who had seen some of the work that I had done in my community and was able to speak to that for me. So that was the approach that I took. It's always important to reach out early so that in case that they don't have the time or they can't commit to a reference, that you have time to ask others. But yeah, it's really just about what they can say about you, not who they are.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned how it's not like the status that matters, but it's exactly like what type of connection you have. Because I'm very glad it's similar with medical school applications, because it was the same thing. Like I'd recommend the same thing when you're applying to scholarships, especially for high school scholarships. Not the status, it's more so what type of connection you have and how you think your referees would be able to talk to, I guess, who you are as a person. Yeah. Awesome.
Super true.
Cool stuff. Yeah. Anything else in the would you mind just briefly touching on interviews? Because I know that's a huge thing as well. Like after you I guess get an offer, like people.
Yeah. That's a great yeah. So I received an interview invitation from the University of Toronto about 2 weeks before my actual interview date. And the interview consisted of 4 different style questions that kind of looked at you from different perspectives, who you are, how you react to different ethical situations, your decision making, thought process, stuff like that, and then your interpersonal or like your personal experiences and stuff like that. So really, they're trying to get to know you off of paper, right? They've seen your academics, they've seen your research experience, they've seen your lack of research experience. It doesn't really matter. They've seen your references and all of that. Like they know who you are on paper. And now this is their opportunity to see you in the candid setting, right? In a setting where you're not as prim and proper and perfect. And so they're not trying to trip you up. Really, they just want to see who you are on a day-to-day basis, right? And someone who hasn't prepared 4 months for like a specific question. And it's not about necessarily what your achievements are or your grades at this point. It's really like, okay, are you a good person? Do you know how to relate to people? Can you communicate your feelings or your thoughts, your intentions? And so these questions are usually geared towards that, unless at least that was in my experience. I can't speak for all schools because I haven't had the privilege of interviewing at other schools, but that was my experience. It really was about getting to know me as a person. My best advice for interviews was really just to find a person, a couple people who you trust that to know about the fact that you have an interview. Definitely, I would suggest not sharing that you have an interview with absolutely everyone, because it creates unnecessary pressure on yourself. Right. You also just want to put good vibes into the universe. So I just preferred to keep that to myself until I knew a little bit more. I didn't want to jinx anything. Right. And rely on those people to give you feedback. Can they help you by maybe giving you a couple practice questions or listening to your response to this interview question or that interview question? And getting their feedback is super, super helpful, as much as it hurts. And I speak from my own personal experience. I absolutely hate getting feedback because it burns so bad, but it's the only way that you really and most efficiently can improve, right? And this is one of those times where you want to get through the painful parts beforehand, and you want to feel good going into your interview. So definitely find someone you trust to help you through that process. Practice back and forth with, perhaps, if they also have an interview, something like that. On interview day, try your best to stay calm. That is, I wasn't calm, but I'm gonna say try your best to stay calm anyways. And oftentimes your interview went better than you thought it did. Because I can speak from personal experience. Even back in undergrad, I thought my interview was horrible, and for my interview to the medical school, I thought my interview was horrible, and yet here I am. So the important thing is that you give yourself the benefit of the doubt. Don't be too hard on yourself, and try your best to decompress. Because you're going to be going through this while you're also in school with a full course load probably, or doing work or something like that. So try your best to pace yourself and take care of yourself during that time.
One step at a time. No, that's awesome. Thanks again for sharing.
Sorry, I'm rambling.
Yeah. No, not ramble. I can good. like I said, I can listen to you talk all day, man. Please keep going. Yeah. I didn't have anything else for this point. I guess
great.
Touch on the last thing I guess I really wanted to talk to you about, and that was just
sounds good.
That was just your research. I know that you're really passionate about it, and I don't know when you started. I don't know if it was in high school. Maybe you could talk to that a bit later on. But I knew you were doing a lot of research during your undergrad, and that you actually published a paper when you were quite young. I think it was 19 years old or something. So how did you catch the research bug? It's been so long then. Yeah,
that's okay. So I actually started back in elementary school with my first baking soda volcano. No, I'm just kidding. No. No, so yes, I didn't have any experience in high school or elementary school or anything like that. I'm not crazy. Although it's awesome if you are. I mean, catching the bug earlier rather than later is probably a good thing. But yeah, I didn't really come across research until my first year, when I was sitting in one of my courses, learning from one of my profs about biomaterials. I was super interested in biomaterials, hence why I went into biomedical and materials engineering. It's very fitting. But yeah, the class was all about biomimicry and creating materials that could like mimic the human body or things that they'd seen in nature to give them really cool properties. And that was just mind blowing to me. So I remember kind of sharing that little anecdote from my class with my family. And luckily I had an older sister who had been through undergrad and through a science program and was doing her master's at the time, who said, Andrew, if you're interested, should consider reaching out and seeing if you can maybe volunteer in a lab somewhere like that. And I was like, what? Why? But that's kind of weird. And then I thought, okay, like maybe I should. This would be a great thing to kind of explore, see if I'm interested in. So I ended up reaching out to that same prof that was teaching about biomimicry.
Oh, wow.
And I asked about their research and if there would be perhaps room in their lab to volunteer. And they said no.
Oh,
they didn't say no
so
to
abrupt.
no, I can't say it like that. They didn't say no to like talking about their research. They just didn't have any volunteer positions in their lab at the time, which I totally respect. It's not easy having an undergrad in the lab who doesn't know what's going on. I'm a huge liability. So I didn't take any offense to the fact that they were shot down my ask. But we ended up getting to talking a little bit more. They invited me into their office. We had some coffee. We talked about their research. We learned a little bit more about each other. And after that event, or like that meeting, I saw them at a couple more kind of social, like networking events with the faculty. And after a lot more discussion and deliberation, they mentioned a couple options that I could have. One being to start as a research student. So I meant summer research student.
Summer research.
So I didn't want to do summer research. I actually wanted to go back to my old job as a camp counselor at the time, but I pushed myself to apply. So I applied to a couple of things, one being the NSERC USRA, which is a pretty popular undergraduate summer research award. And it basically makes you very attractive for profs to hire you because you come with your own funding. So they don't have to pay you as much, and they still train you and all that good stuff. So you're a very like attractive sell when you come with money. It's a great thing. Research is all about funding. So I was lucky enough after a very hard-working semester to receive one of these awards. And that kind of sparked a whole bunch of changes in my summer plans. They ended up offering me a position in their lab, and I worked under the co-supervision of two professors at McMaster. And so that's how I got into research. My path to research is definitely a little bit different than others. And there's no one way to go about it, but that's how I did it. I would just suggest if you're interested in getting into research, email as many profs as you can. Don't ask for a position right away. Ask to talk to them about their research. You don't have to pretend like you know what their research is. Trust me when I tell you I've tried that. I've tried reading their papers and it's always gibberish. And then I try walking in and be like, oh yeah, like I totally understand the electropolymerization of this anode cathode reaction, something. I was just speaking nonsense and they knew it, right? So, and of course they knew that I was, quite new. So they didn't fault me for it. But they did make that an opportunity for me to actually learn what they do off of paper and as a back and forth kind of discussion. And I found that way more helpful to discover what they're actually doing and whether or not I enjoy it. I think I would like it or I'm interested in it. So ask to speak to them and discuss and learn about their research rather than pretend that you know everything or ask for a position right away or something like that. It's good to develop a relationship first. So yeah, I guess like that's how I got into research. That's a little bit about how I would suggest approaching getting a research position. A little bit about my projects, I guess. I My first project in my first summer of research was about creating novel biomaterials. So like biomaterials that have never been made before or made in different ways from scratch using an electrochemical technique. And I was using this technique to basically stick these materials to the surface of stainless steel scaffold materials, or just like stainless steel samples that were supposed to represent the surface of biomedical implants, like bone implants, specifically in the knee, or like dental implants, something like that. So the whole point of this idea was to treat these implants with something that was a little
Not
bit
foreign.
more,
Yeah.
not so much foreign, a little bit more conducive to bone healing, bone growth, stickiness of the bone, because that's important too. If it's not sticky, then you won't get good bone adhesion, and your implant might fail earlier. So basically, just really trying to improve the integration of the bone tissue with these implants. And I did that through a variety of ways. I measured the success of these implants by using electron microscopy, which I learned from scratch, which was super, super cool. I can actually operate an entire electron microscope, which I think is still so weird. And I don't know how they trusted me with something so expensive, but a very cool thing to share. I also did a variety of other like cell testing techniques and stuff like that to see how the cells enjoyed the materials that I created. And I was fortunate enough to, receive a lot of good results. Actually, we received really good results on my very first day of research, which never happens. Don't think that's not a constant.
You're meant for research, Andrew.
I could see all the grad students in my lab that had been there for like 2 years being like,
You're built for it, Andrew.
No, I got lucky. It was very nice. I remember it wasn't actually that impressive. I just clicked a button. I pulled the stainless steel like thing out of the gel, and something stuck to it. And all of a sudden, my PhD supervisor to the side of me went, "Oh my God!" Right? And I was like, "What is this? Oh, sure. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yes." And then
Like Frankenstein.
I pretended to understand what was happening, and then later I realized that what we had done was actually very interesting because it had worked, and I was like, wow, okay, that's super cool. So we ended up publishing that research. So yeah, after a very long and stressful summer and lots of hard work, I'm fortunate to say that summer ended with a couple of publications, and it was all very exciting. It was a very cool experience. And I think everybody deserves to engage in that experience at some point. In a little bit faster detail, I will say my second summer was about taking electron microscopy techniques and improving them for observation of hydrated tissues. So if you've heard about electron microscopy, you know that it occurs in a vacuum, which is not good for hydrated materials because they will kind of evaporate. The water in them will evaporate, and that will completely ruin the vacuum or damage the machine. So for a time, hydrated materials has been a big no in the electron microscopy world. So what we did was we applied a new technique called Ionic liquid treatment to basically treat the hydrated samples so that they could be imaged without having to fix them and dehydrate them and all that kind of stuff. And that was really important because you can preserve the structure of these a little bit better, of these materials, and hopefully get a better idea of what's actually happening in your samples before you dry them out and pretty much destroy them and fix them and stuff like that. So that was pretty cool. Most recently, that also ended up in a couple of publications, which I'm very fortunate for. And then lastly, this summer and now going into the year, I've actually continued my work with this lab. I worked at Princess Margaret, and I was part of a team that was developing basically taking the COVID-19 vaccine technology, which was basically like RNA inside this lipid nanoparticle. We took the lipid nanoparticle, we made it our own, we made it light sensitive. We didn't take the specific technology or the patents or anything like that. We made our own lipid nanoparticle version, and we loaded them with different RNA therapeutics to treat prostate cancer. So to create different targets that could be used to take a genetic stab at the cancer issues facing patients. It was a very cool summer. It was a lot more biological and a lot less engineering focused, but still a lot of both. I got to work with mice, to develop these nanoparticles from scratch. I got to observe their effects after treating them with like a blast of laser radiation, which activated them and allowed them to kind of explode their contents into the local environment, and see their applicability in actually treating human disease, which was pretty cool. So yeah, that's a very, very high level view, and don't quote me on anything I just said about that last project, because a lot of it was very condensed and mixed together so that it would be a little bit more palatable for any audience, but that's the general premise.
No, like
so
I
yeah,
understand.
that's my research experience.
No, that's really fascinating. And when you told me about, I didn't hear about your first two research experiences in undergrad, but I remember you telling me about your most recent one at Princess Margaret, and yeah, I was in awe. I'm like, yeah, that's incredible. Like that has, like, I can see how much potential it has. So yeah, hopefully you're able to get some publications out of that, and I guess disseminate the knowledge into the world.
Yeah, I won't lie. This type of research is a lot more, is a lot I don't know, higher ed, like higher tech, and a lot more I guess, what's the word for it? A lot more like a lot more burdensome. I would say, for lack of better words, a lot more burdensome. There's a lot more you have to do to kind of further your project. There's a lot more moving parts. And so it's a lot harder to get the results you need for a full out publication in just one summer. But like, we're making our progress, slow but steady. I think we're on a good path there. And I'm glad that I've gotten the chance to stay on with the group to kind of continue my research and hopefully contribute to that publication eventually.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And talking about publications, the ultimate goal of research is, I guess, to disseminate knowledge by eventually publishing your findings and the work that you're doing. And the thing is that most students, they're typically able to find a research position and potentially, hopefully, maybe get their name on a paper. It usually isn't as like a first author or second author. But I know that they're always looking for that experience, right? So I know that you've been quite successful with your research and have published like several manuscripts with either your name as the first author or even second author. And I was just wondering if you'd mind sharing with everybody how you were able to, I guess, pursue that route.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's hard because I've seen like other very hardworking undergrads not achieve these publications the way that they kind of fell into my lap. And I think it really just depends on like right time, right place. I think anybody in my position could have achieved these publications. I don't attribute it to something that I did specifically. But what I would say is, one thing that I noticed is working in a smaller lab that's a little bit more, a little bit more close knit, a little bit more intimate. People know each other better, and there's just also like less students, less projects. You get a lot more time to kind of do hands-on work yourself. Usually your work is a little bit more impactful and meaningful too. I found that the work that I was doing in my smaller labs, which were earlier in my research career, were usually more, I don't know, I guess the word would be kind of integral to the project. I was doing meaningful tasks that were kind of important for creating certain parts of the story that were going into the publication. Now, that's not to say in the bigger lab that I wasn't doing that, but I was doing work that was a little bit more repetitive. Maybe that's just because of the project that I was on. And I was doing work that was usually like supervised by someone above me. I didn't really have as much independence. I still did have independence. I was able to run my own experiments by the end of the summer and all that. But I would say like there was a little bit more of like a mentorship component where, I was the learner, and I was kind of completing work for someone above me that I was working with, right? Whereas instead of, I guess, I was the learner and, I had been empowered by my supervisor to kind of try my own things or pursue a new direction or something like that. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a difference there in terms of like what kind of independence you have.
Right.
So I think that working in a smaller lab was kind of conducive to having a more impactful role in a publication. And also, like I just there were less people to kind of consume the work. So I a couple times I'd offered, like I'll help with that the review that you're putting together. One of the PhD students in my lab was doing a review solo, and I said, wow, do you need help? Sure, like I'd love to help. And it ended up working out, right? So sometimes it's just about putting yourself out there, being willing to work with other people, and stuff like that. I think another thing that's important is expressing interest in being part of the publication, part of authorship. Something that I didn't know to do at first, and so I was very fortunate that my professors were looking out for me and saying, okay, we're thinking about having your name on this paper. What do you think about that? Like what kind of things would you like to contribute? So on and so forth, right? Whereas some profs might not know that you are interested in publishing, or might not consider you for publication if you don't reach out to them. So I kind of later on in my training, I made it clear one summer, I was like, this summer this was my second year in the same research group. I had said, I really want to make my own manuscript. That's my goal this summer. I want to write a manuscript. And they were like, wow, okay, that's a huge undertaking, but sure, like we're going to try, right? So, and it ended up working out. Like I was very happy with my I guess courage, and also push to like do something as strenuous as that. And it ended up working out. So I think sometimes it's also just about putting yourself out there and expressing interest. And yeah, I guess like what else can I say to that?
Just touching on that point, Andrew, I'm
Sure.
so grateful that you shared that with me, because I remember talking with you about research and all that fun stuff. I don't know, it was during one of our meetings or afterwards. And
oh yes, I do remember. Yep.
Yeah. And after you said that, I did exactly what you said, like express interest that you want to potentially, you want to get more involved with the project, and that you want to eventually publish your own manuscript. And I exactly did that. Like I went up to my prof, and when we were having like, I guess our initial meeting, he asked me, I guess, what do you want to get out of the summer? And I quoted you. I'm like, I want to potentially get a manuscript by the end of the summer. And I guess it's still in the works. Like, it's all written, and we're going to submit it soon. So hopefully it works
congratulations.
out. I'm just glad I was able to even get that experience of like writing it myself and not under somebody else.
Yeah, it's a very interesting experience and a very good skill to learn, especially if you're going into the field of research, medicine, biomedical engineering, anything like that. Manuscripts are a huge part of that. And it's a really cool experience to have as a student to be able to contribute to something that is going to be recognized by the scientific community as meaningful, right, and impactful. So good on you for doing that and having the courage to step forward.
I'll be forever grateful. Thank you so much.
Well, that's not me, that was you. As I said, I think that I was very fortunate to have the opportunities that I did. I think that it was the product of hard work, but also the community around me and the people that kind of helped me to those publications. It wasn't something that I achieved on my own. So yeah, remember that.
Remember that, people. Yeah. No, Andrew, it was really great having you today, man. Thank you so much for saying yes.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, no, your story is exceptional. So thank you for sharing it with everybody today. Just like how I always end the, I guess, episode, just asking if you have any final words of wisdom or advice that you'd like to leave everyone with today.
Yeah, I guess, thank you, Shub. This was excellent. I had a great time. I'm so glad I had the chance to share my experiences. I'm sorry if I rambled a bit, but yeah, I guess for anybody who is watching this back or has any questions or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I absolutely love the opportunity to meet with people, share my experiences further, and help people through some of the things that I wish I knew in undergrad or in grad school. And I'm just here trying to make things easier for someone that is going through what I went through before. So please feel free to reach out to me at any time. And also just like good luck with whatever you choose to do. All the best to you, and stay safe, stay healthy.
Perfect. No, thank you so much. Have a lovely day. Take care.
Thanks, Jude. Take care.
That's all for this month. Thank you for listening. If you liked this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you have questions or thoughts about this episode or just want to connect, I'd love to get an email from you at the email address that's listed in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.